Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have come back from the London Pen Show in March 2019. This was one of the pens that I managed to acquire, and this is the Armando Simoni Club Il Gladiatore, or in English, Gladiator. Now, I was under the initial impression that this would be a large pen, and it is a large pen, but it's not as large as the Armando Simoni Club Bologna Extras in terms of length. It is, though, in terms of girth to the pen. But this was a pen, I wanted to add another Arco Brown to my collection, and this was another pen that came up, so I managed to snap this one up pretty quickly. And my thanks go to Sarge, the One Man Pen Show, for being able to acquire this on my behalf through the LA Pen Show. So, for me, I will show you parts of this pen. Now, this isn't a full unboxing. And the reason why is if you buy a pen at a pen show, especially a pen that comes in a large box or a heavy box, they don't always have the boxes at the pen shows. So I don't have the box with this pen at this moment in time. Hopefully the box will arrive later. It sometimes can take up to 3 months, in my experience, to receive a box. But I thought I would do a full review of this pen now, rather than wait for the box to arrive and do the review and unboxing in 3 months' time. So when the box arrives, maybe I'll do a revisit on this pen and decide and sort of go through the motions of how it's now writing compared to how it started to write in this video here. Now, I have been writing with this pen for about a week. I've written about 7 letters with this pen, so I know how this pen writes. So I felt it perfect to do the review now. So let me just go through the parts of this pen. This is a lovely pen. As always, the Arco Brown material is lovely and stunning, and you can see here just how wellly polished this pen is, and you can see here, just look how that shines. And these Arco materials are normally polished with a beeswax compound that make them shine a lot more. Now, this is made from an Omas Arco celluloid material, which is no longer in production. ASC, or Armando Simoni Club, have bought up all of the remaining rod stock, as I understand it. So, and also that this rod stock is getting very low. So there will not, as I understand, be many pens or many new models that will be made out of this Arco Brown material. How many though? I don't know. Maybe there's enough to make another 50 limited edition run. Maybe there's enough to make maybe a 300 limited edition run, or multiple pens. But I do know that this material is finite, and when it's gone, it's gone. So that's why I decided to pick this pen up. Now, I'll show you some of the differences on this pen. There's quite a few nuances and differences and improvements, I would say, to this pen over an Armando Simoni Club Bologna Extra. So it comes with this standard Italian style roller clip, which I do like. The cap finial, you can see here, says Armando Simoni Club. There you go, ASC Armando Simoni Club. And that's different. We have not seen that on a previous ASC pen, having a cap finial like that. Now, the pen is faceted. It does come with a lot of facets, and this is very similar to really the Paragons from Omas, or the Paragon Grande. This really takes its design from. Now, another thing that you will see here is, if I just zoom in, the cap band here is actually very fine and chiseled out. You can see the almost the sort of like triangles going on there in that material. Now, all of the trims on this pen are chocolate brown PVD ceramic coated. Now, one thing I do find on this pen is that this material here, the metal that this is made out of, or it feels like metal, maybe ceramic, is quite rough to the touch. So it's not as smooth as most cap bands will be, but I do like that design. That design is really, really lovely. So although it's a little bit rough to the touch, and when I say rough, if I try to put it into, say, a pen sleeve with plush inner lining, that will catch on it, and you can hear it catching. Now, the pen itself, you can see here the facets on the pen, and the pen tapers up to the cap band and then starts to taper back down to these other two bands here. And there was no mention about these bands, so I did have to ask ASC, because these bands do move, and they do move independently of each other. If I can try and move that, there you go. So, but again, these are quite nice, but again, these are slightly have a texture, a rough feeling to them. So they're not smooth to the touch. The other thing here, and we haven't seen this, I think, on an Armando Simoni Club pen recently, certainly not the Bolognas, is that we have a piston filling mechanism and not a pneumatic filling mechanism. Now, I never was really a fan of the pneumatic filling mechanisms because of them having sacks. Sacks can deteriorate over time, need replacing, and I tend to prefer pistons. So for me, this really was a welcome addition. Now, to be honest, in more recent times, I've collected more Armando Simoni Club Bologna extras, and the sacks have not really caused me any concern. I've not had a single problem with them yet. I do know at some point I will probably need to have the sacks replaced, whereas a piston filling mechanism you probably will not. Now, the other difference with this pen as well, and I'll show you if I uncap it, again, we have this throughout, this chocolate brown coloured sort of coated nib here, which is very different, and we haven't seen this on another Armando Simoni Club pen before. It's a number 8 size nib made by Bock. It's the Magic Flex nib. To be honest, I don't see a huge amount of flex in these nibs. They are normally very, very wet writers though, and I do love how they write. Now, the other thing that is very unique is this feed or feeder. And this is an anodized aluminium feed in a gold colour, and you can see just there that goldness that comes through. Now, I, like many people, were skeptical about this feed. I've asked a lot of people over the last couple of months, after hearing about this feed, whether or not any pen manufacturer has done an aluminium feed on a fountain pen. And to everybody's knowledge, they've all said they're not aware of anybody. So I don't know if this is a first, or maybe it has been done on a pen at some point in history. So this has given a lot of us concern in the fountain pen community that whether or not this feed will be able to keep up. Normally with an ebonite feed you will heat set it against the nib so that you can get a better consistency with flow. Clearly you're not going to be able to do this with aluminium. So there have been some concerns there. However, with writing with this, I have not had problems with this nib. Now, I have found that if I fill the pen up, it writes super wet, more wetter than any Bologna extra that I have, probably by about 5 times. But as soon as that ink comes out of this feed, and it goes back to effectively the ink that's coming through the piston here, through to the feed, it starts to write more, I'd say dry, but it's really more normal compared to what you would expect. It's more dry compared to the initial inking of the pen, for sure. But this is a lovely pen, and I am really glad that I was able to add this to my collection. So in terms of size, you can see here, the pen is actually a good size in my hand, and this really, for me, is a good writing experience. It is a little bit back-weighted. I've had a number of people ask me, because of the piston filling mechanism, is it back-weighted? Yes, I'm finding it is just a little bit back-weighted, but it's not causing me any problems with hand fatigue, which I can sometimes get with larger pens. I typically get it more with smaller or thinner pens, especially pens that have a thinner grip section, and I don't have that here. Now, there are threads here, and the threads are not sharp, and you then have, again, another Greek keyband, similar to what you were seeing up on the piston filling knob. Now, these are static, they do not rotate. But again, I think that just really sort of highlights, you can see here and here, that I think it just matches up really, really well. So, this pen is inked. I will do a size check and weight comparison so you can see. So the pen itself is about 148 millimeters in length. I guess the cap, we're looking at about 66 millimeters, and then the pen itself, from the tip of the tines, we are looking at about 137 millimeters in length. So it's an oversized pen. So let me just do a weight check so you can see. So the full weight of the pen, and this isn't a light pen, it's just under 57 grams. Now, it's not my heaviest pen. I have more heavier pens. The cap is just under 13 grams. And then the pen itself is really just under 44 grams. So this is quite a weighty pen. It's not a pen that, if you don't like weighty pens, that you're going to want to write with, because if you don't like weighty or heavy pens, then I would certainly discard this pen. However, I do like weighty, large pens, and for me, this is the ideal size. So let me do a comparison here with other pens. So, from left to right, we have the Armando Simoni Club Bologna Extra Arco Verde in the gold trim. We have it in the rhodium trim. We have the Armando Simoni Club Bologna Extra Arco Brown in the gold, rose gold trim. We have the Armando Simoni Club Il Gladiatore. We have the Visconti Manhattan Arco. We have the Omas Arte Italiana Paragon, sometimes known as the Grande. And we have an Omas Milord in the Arco Brown. We have a Pelican M800 Royal Gold Rawdon. We have the Visconti Templar Jacques de Molay. And we have the Visconti Homo Sapiens Bronze Swirl. So I think before we do a writing sample, let's go through some of the pros and cons about this pen. So what do I like about this pen? I like that it's Arco Brown. There is only a finite amount of this Arco Brown material remaining. ASC have, as I understand it, 99% of that stock, and when that stock is gone after making these pens, there won't be any remaining pens to be made from this material. So for me, Like, it's a love-hate relationship. I love that these new pens are coming out, but I'm not going to like the day where suddenly there is no more of this material around. I also like that this is a weighty pen, and I think it's a good size pen. I like that it has a piston mechanism on it and not a pneumatic filler. I love this cap band here, the Greek key, and also these separate bands here near the piston filling knob. I like the chocolate brown PVD ceramic coating, and I like the brown nib, and I love the gold feed. Now, what do I not like about this pen? I guess for me, the first thing is the price. This, at full MSRP, is almost twice the price of an Armando Simoni Club Bologna Extra. A lot of us collectors have actually really seriously wondered about this price and whether or not to pick up this pen, and I was very close to not picking up this pen myself. But I decided that I would, and I did. But equally, a lot of collectors have also decided not to. Now, for me, like, even now that it is discounted, it's still around about 1.5 times the price of a Bologna Extra. In the Arco Brown finish, the Bologna Extra is longer or larger, and although now, if you try to buy one of those, you're paying closer to this price. So the limited availability of these pens are that it's driving the price up, and to the point that some of us will still pay for it and some of us won't. So that's really one of the downsides about this pen. I think the other downsides are that these cap bands and rings here are on the sharp side. Certainly on my pen. Now, maybe that's not on every pen. I've not been able to try the other pens, but they feel rough to the touch. So that's really something else that I don't like about the pen. I guess in terms of the size of the pen, it's a pen that I do like. I love the weight. The cap feels very, very light to me, and a lot lighter than the Bologna Extra caps do. So I think this cap is actually quite thin, and that maybe gives me some concern. But for me, though, like it doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel substantial, and compared to, say, a Bologna cap would. Now, I think really it's a nice pen, and I'm very glad that I've added this to my collection. However, the price point is high, and I really do think that this is getting to a price point where most of us collectors will not pay that price for the pen. And I think this is probably the top end of top, or the high end, or top end of high, that we would be willing to pay, or at least I know I would. And after speaking to a number of collectors, they have the same feeling and same opinion too. That said, this is a lovely pen, and I'm so glad that I have managed to add this to my collection. So, I think with this, let's do a writing sample. So, this is the Armando Simoni Club, and it's the Il Gladiatore. And you can see here, this is actually quite wet at the moment. The ink in here is an ink that I normally put in a lot of my Arco pens, and this is Akamon. I'm sure you can guess this. SBRE Brown. Now, these are medium nibs, and you are going to get, in a lot of cases, this is really more of a medium to a broad line here. Now these are Magic Flex nibs. Can you flex them? Yes, you can. Do you want to flex them? Probably not. I will try and do a little bit of line variation, but I don't want to spring these tines. So you can get quite a bit here, and let me show you here. You can get quite a bit of line variation from this nib. So this can be flexed quite a bit. Now, in terms of wetness, let's give this a try. Move the notepad up a little bit. So you can see here, this is an A4 pad, and this is super wet. Now, I have in the past called the Armando Simoni Club Bologna's fire hose nibs. This to me is a fire engine or a fire truck. I don't think I've ever had a nib right as wet as this where it will smear across the entire A4 page. Now this has been inked up recently, so it does have a little bit more ink flow in here because of the ink that's in the feed. It will start to write drier, and it will write more drier than it is at the moment. However, you can see here how wet this nib writes. And I think one other thing just to mention here as well is that one of the things that I know sometimes is a bit of a controversy with these pens is that to get this Arco to line up, you normally with OMAS you have to go back 2 clicks when you put the nib in. Armando Simoni Club you normally go back 1 click and then screw the nib up. However, with 1 click on this pen, it doesn't line up. So you do have to do 2 clicks, which is really more reminiscent of the OMAS pens. And I kind of like that, although it does now make me a little bit more confused because all of my other Armando Simoni Clubs, you go back 1 click to try and line up that material. But this is a lovely pen, and I'm so glad that I managed to add this to my collection. I really do like this pen. It does write very well, but it is an expensive pen. So this pen I know is not for everyone, but the pen for me is a lovely pen. So again, I'm glad I've added this to my collection. I hope you like this review video. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.